Morning, shalom, welcome to OTH. This morning we're going to give you an update on our basil plants and drying the herbs and what we've done, what we've learned, and what we're trying to do. So this is an update on our basil. We did not do a lot of research before. We were just trying to kind of think through how people have done this in the past, and I have dried flowers and other things before, but we're from the north and we are on a huge learning curve now that we live in Arkansas and down in the south. The humidity adds a whole nother dimension that we were not prepared for. But so the basil, it just molded way too quickly. There's just not enough dry heat outside. Basil in and of itself has a lot of moisture in the leaves, so this is not a good plan for drying basil. The lavender's doing all right, but it too, probably most things would be best to be dried inside unless you wait till maybe the fall, but even that I'm not sure of because this will be our first fall here in the Ozarks. So this is basically just going to go into the compost pile and we're done with it, unfortunately, but that's okay. I still have two other basil plants, so I will show you what we're going to do and how we're going to dry these out, hopefully properly this time. We tried last week to dry some. It did not go well. I'm going to show you, we have two other plants this morning. This is our smallest plant, and this is what you are supposed to do when, as soon as you see flowers, can you see those on top of there, the flowering? You're supposed to pluck those off. This will ensure that your plant continues to grow. We're going to pull off some leaves to put in our dinner tonight. We're going to make a pasta meal. So we want fresh basil. The morning is the best time to pick these. So I'm going to take a couple. Do you see how this is heading off and there's a set of several leaves? I'm going to pluck the bigger, tender leaf off underneath there and take that. I'm going to pluck the bigger leaf off of here. And these that are starting to flower, I'm going to pluck the flower head off because that will cause the plant, I'm told, I have not done this myself before, to continue to spread out, to put all of its energy in making the leaves instead of these flower pods. I guess some people will actually eat the flower. They're much more pungent than the leaves actually are. But basil in and of itself is an aromatic, because as soon as you pluck the leaves and you touch them, you can smell the delicious, wonderful smell of those. We're going to, not today, but we are going to make pesto and make little frozen pesto cubes so we can just eat on that all winter long because we have a lot of basil. But today we're just going to add this to a Greek pasta dish that we're going to make this evening. So this plant I'm hoping will continue to grow until the first frost. So I'm going to continue plucking off the flowers. I'm going to continue just pulling off fresh, tender leaves to use on a daily basis. And then we will use this one to make the fresh pesto, frozen pesto cubes, basically. I'm going to go show you our other plant over here, which I did not know originally that I was supposed to be plucking the flowers. So it has grown up into a huge bush and it's got lots of flowers at the top. Hoping that we can save some of those seeds so we can start our own next year, because basil is an annual. You will have to replant it. So if you're trying to live a sustainable life, you need to get the seeds from an organic plant. And these are organic. At least we were told they were organic. We purchased them this year. So we haven't put any pesticides or anything on our food. So we're going to try and dry some of these. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do over here. Alright, so this is our other basil plant, and we need to get to it today because some of the other leaves are starting to die off on the bottom of it. And like I said, we didn't do anything with it. I did not realize that I needed to, but you can see these are already turning to seed. I should have plucked all of those off and it would have been even bigger, but it's done quite well, I think. I'm excited that it's so big. I never got plants like this back in Montana, so I'm excited about trying this. Today I'm just going to cut off a branch and we're going to dry this inside using our ovens today. We do have a dehydrator, but we're going to try the oven. We're going to do one in our convection oven and the other just in a regular oven, both on very low. Let them dry out at about 170. I think that's the lowest that my oven will go. So we're going to try that out and check them on a 15-minute intervals just to see where they're at. We're going to dry it so that we'll have fresh herbs to use throughout the winter. Hopefully we'll have enough to vacuum seal and save up for next year as well. So we're going to cut some branches off.
Look at that, just like an old pro. You're
An old pro?
doing work and holding a baby at the same time.
Well,
you've done that before? Do you have a little bit of practice doing that, Mrs. Fletch?
A little bit of practice. She should be in the front pack, but it's too hot for the front pack right now, so I had hoped she'd stay in the stroller, but she wasn't real happy with that plan. So we're going to just start with this right here, and we'll take it inside and show you what we're going to do with it. I'm going to try and get one more branch off here. It's got quite a bit. Okay. Hold on, baby. I'm sorry. Mama's got to get in there. Alright, sweetheart. Okay, so that should be enough for us to at least test out and see what the best way to do this is. And then next time we'll probably resort to our dehydrator. That's what we bought it for, but we've got, as you can see, we've got a ton of mint, sweet mint, peppermint, spearmint. We've got a lot of things that we need to dry, so we're going to try several ways and see what works the best for us right now. Fortunately, when you don't have electricity, you're going to have to use the outside, and ideal circumstance would be we would have our own little drying rack that we could keep inside at a little bit more constant temperature and let the air kind of dry it out. But at this point, we don't. So we're going to use what we do have and see what results we get. So,
oh, that smells good. I can smell that from here.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love the smell of basil. You like that too? She wants to eat some. But all right, we'll go inside and start. I'm going to give it a quick little wash because there are some, you know, debris on there from the rains and things that we've gotten. Doesn't look like too many bugs have gotten to the basil. That's one of the reasons I planted my mint and marigolds all around this, was to help keep some pests off. But as you can tell, I'm trying to figure out, my irises sit right next to it. And when we did the video last week on the basil, the stalks were still perfect, but something's been in here and gnawing them to death. Thankfully, they're sticking mostly to those. The rest of our stuff still seems to be okay. I don't know what pest it is. I'm assuming grasshoppers, locusts, something. I still don't know all the pests that reside here, so I'm learning that as well. So, okay, we'll head inside. So I tore off the leaves off of the stalks, and I've laid them out on 2 different trays. So we're just going to try one on the convection oven and one in just at regular bake. My oven goes down to 150, so my top oven is the convection. So we're going to put that in there and we're just going to let it dry. I don't want this to bake, we just want it to dry out. But I think the convection oven is going to work better because convection sends air all around, and that's really what we're after. And then this one will just bake. It will probably take a couple of hours at 150, so we'll check back in a couple hours on those. However, I've done a little bit of research on basil, and a lot of people do not like dried basil. It really loses most of its flavor. I still like to use it in spaghetti sauce and stuff, so I am going to just dry a little bit of it. What I'm going to do with the rest of the plant is we're going to cut it fresh in the morning, put it in a nice glass of cold water so that it stays nice and fresh till the evening when we're ready to prepare it in our fresh food. But I'm also going to tear off some of the leaves and make pesto cubes, basically a very simple basic pesto sauce with the basil and a little bit of olive oil in our small food processor, and then we'll put them in ice cube trays and freeze them, and then freeze all of those in a big Ziploc bag or one of our airtight bags so that we can pull those out during the winter, and that saves much more of the fresh basil aroma. And finally, on the stalks that we cut off earlier, I saved a bunch. I cut off all the tops where it flowers, and if you can see this, where they're drying off, there's little tiny seeds in here. And so what I'm going to do is just set it up on top of one of our shelves up here and hopefully let it all dry, and then we'll just gently rub out all of these seeds. And they are tiny. I mean, they're tiny. That's one of the seeds there, if you can see that tiny little thing, kind of like a little mustard seed. We're just going to save those again. I like to save my seeds in either an envelope, Probably here in the south, I'm going to try and save them in glass jars so that less moisture can get in and affect the germination or the life of the seed. But I cut these off. Don't want to dry these in the oven. I don't want to risk, I want just a even temperature. I don't want to risk the seed getting too hot in any way to germinate or kill the seed in any fashion. So that's what we're doing with the basil for now. And we will show you how we make the pesto when we're ready to do that. And we'll show you a little bit of the growth. It's just the beginning of August. We still have quite a bit of a growing season here. So hopefully my other basil plant will still, after plucking the flowers off, will still get quite a bit of produce off of that. I read that you can get 6 to 10 cups of basil, enough to make a lot of pesto for the winter time off of those. Secondly, we're open for comments on the kitchen behind me. We moved in January. We hate the kitchen. We hate the cabinets. We're not looking to do a $10,000 makeover, but we are looking to do a little bit of paint and some things. So if you've got ideas, let us know. We're open to all kinds of inspiration and ideas, and especially cheap ways to update a kitchen. So thank you. Welcome back to OTH. JC and I are here, and we're going to finish up our basil for you. If you remember the other day, we put it into 2 ovens, one convection and one just our regular oven at low heat. FYI, our convection oven does not work at 150 degrees. I don't know if that's the case for all convection ovens. We moved in here just 6 months ago, and there are no directions, and I've never used a convection oven until I moved in here. So we are still learning by mistake, obviously. But once I did figure that out, it took like 10-15 minutes for this to work and for the basil to be completely dry. So I would definitely suggest using your convection oven if you have it. Otherwise, the baking works just fine too. It just takes a little bit longer. I was checking it every 15 to 20 minutes. I didn't want it to get, a burned brown taste or look to it. So let me show you what it looks like when it's dried. It's all crinkly and perfect. Basically, you just want it to be able to crumble up in your fingers when you grab one. And JC's getting unhappy with this. She wants to be the star of the show, apparently. So taking the leaves, I'm just going to pluck off the bottom part because I don't like eating that. And basically, we're just going to crumple it up with our fingers and make it into smaller, usable size for when we want to measure it out into our sauces or whatever. And I leave out the middle part here. The middle part, it's just hard to chew on. It's like celery, it's just not. You don't want to find that in your dish. So basically that's all we're going to do. We're going to store it in a mason jar and try and keep it nice and cool. I do think here in the South that glass jars are a wonderful way to preserve things, to keep bugs out of them. And we buy the reusable lids. So these you can just boil in hot water, run through your dishwasher, whatever works for you best. But I love these because you don't throw them away, a lot less waste. That's basically what we're trying to do, is learn to use what we have, learn to make things more sustainable, be able to come back and keep things going for us. So we're just going to store it in this jar. And we've had a lot of rain the last couple of days, so our other 2 basil plants should still be producing. So hopefully by the end of next week, we'll be able to pluck off enough leaves to make the pesto cubes that I told you about. What you don't want to do, if you hope to continue harvesting throughout the season, is to pull off everything and expect your plant to recover. You need to take a couple of weeks in between plucking off a whole bunch of leaves. If you're only using 2 or 3 in a day for a Thai dish or something like that, that's fine. But like we took off a whole bunch off of our plant in order to do the drying. You don't want to do that. So anyhow, hope you're having a wonderful day, and shalom.